That's right back, Charlie. Definitely.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Come on. As the big man Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. I've got Jess, aka She Knows Arsenal. I can't imagine you're not subscribing and following her on all her socials. Make sure you are. We just did a live stream on her channel. Make sure you check that out in case any topics weren't covered. How are you doing, excluding the result against Porto, which no doubt we're going to get into it. This is the president of the Kirill fan club and the Smith Rowe's biggest hater. I think the only person she hates more than Smith Rowe is Ivan Toney. I had to, man. She's giving me a lot of shit on her stream. So now I'm happy to give it back.
You should also said, AKA your biggest bully, because I will be bullying you.
I can't believe you, man.
Yeah, because I mean, be serious. But no, I'm actually good. Like obviously the result was not great, but it is what it is. Like life goes on, you know. So yeah, I'm good, and I'm excited to talk again.
I mean, I don't know if you're being excited to get with the result, but as you said, it is what it is. And what it is, we lost 1-0 to Porto in the first leg of the round of 16. Obviously, some people, including myself, will be a bit nervous because it has shades. Again, the second leg might be different, but it reminds me of Villarreal, of Olympiacos, of Sporting Lisbon, ironically, as well. So how did you feel about the game? And what is your thoughts on it?
I think the main takeaway is that we're incredibly immature still. Especially when it comes to cup competitions. I just don't think we have the street smart. We are not very we're playing 90% of the games that we play, we're going to win based on the way that we play because we're very dominant. But there's 10% where we just come up against teams that are tactically drilled, are very like a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what we're going to do and what we're going to try to do. And when we're faced with a level of adversity, we just cannot get beyond it. And yesterday, it felt like that. That's what it felt like. It felt like from minute one, we were faced with maybe something that we were not prepared for, or the moment was so big that even though we may have had the tools, we weren't able to execute and get beyond it. And so I just found myself, as the ball hit the back of the net, feeling like I've seen this before. And how incredibly naive can we be to be about a minute away from, or even maybe 30 seconds away from, a 0-0 draw that we did not deserve. How incredibly naive we are not to just kick it into the stands and reset and defend well in our shape. But it's just the typical Arsenal thing to do. And I hate to say that. You know, I want to believe that the team is maturing and getting better and we're not seeing the shades of the same things. But I agree with you. I feel like it's giving Sporting. You know, it really is that, like, we were not good in the first leg. And even though we should feel very confident going into the leg at home, we've given them something to hold on to. And this coach is so confident that he's like in the media, literally talking shit as if they know they're going to the next round.
And a couple of their players as well.
Yeah, it's not looking good, you know, but there's still 90 minutes to go. And it's really up to the team to change the narrative around Arsenal in Europe. You know, the fans can do whatever, be overconfident, be negative, be toxic, but really until we change the narrative, and that can only really happen with the players and the manager, I can't really blame the fans for feeling like, damn, we're doing it again, you know? So that's kind of how I feel.
I mean, you mentioned it there, and I don't disagree. I think we're naive now. I offered my thoughts on this, but if we are still naive, because you touched on it, why are we naive, and how much of that is down to the manager? Because obviously we've got young players and old habits die hard and all of that. But then, and I agree with that. But then, if I play devil's advocate, a lot of you have played in the Europa League. You know, Trossard was out there. Declan Rice was out there. Declan Rice might not be old, but he's played enough professional games. And there's several other examples of such. So it's like, why are we still naive? And how much of that is a reflection on the manager then for you?
I mean, when you see us make the same mistakes, no matter who it is, I do start to think it's maybe the way that the manager approaches these games. I don't know if he's overly cautious or focuses so much on not conceding or something that we almost manifest it by being too nervous or something. Because when you look at the way that we went out against Olympiacos, which to me is the most traumatic moment under Mikel Arteta, I did not live through that very well. That was Leno and David Luiz that made that mistake on that day. And you can't necessarily say either one of them lack experience. You know, they're internationals, they've won things before.
Been
So
around the block.
exactly. So I'm not sure if it's just experience. I feel like it's the way we go into these matches, and there's a level of nervousness and a lack of like relaxation. Like, we're going to win it. Even if we do concede, we'll come back. It's like, do not concede. Don't make a mistake. And as the game goes on, we get more tense. And I have to think that that's maybe the way that the way that Mikel maybe approaches it, because maybe he's coming from a place of fear instead of confidence, because it didn't feel like we were desperate to score. It felt like we were desperate to stop them from doing anything, and it backfired. You know, I feel like when you play like that, you play to like not concede. You almost like make it happen. So I do think it might be the manager, and maybe his naivety and inexperience is rubbing off on everybody else, because I don't necessarily feel like being such an inexperienced and young team means that these performances make sense in cups. They don't, to me. They don't make sense. We couldn't kick the ball to each other. We couldn't. Like, that's wild to me. So, yeah, and it was everyone. There wasn't really anybody out there that could say like I played really well, which is shocking. Probably our most important game of the season. We dropped zeros across the board. That just, yeah, that's shocking to me.
I mean, you said it there, man. I think on the face of it, if somebody never watched the game and never watched anything and just looked at it from a stats point of view, we had more possession, we had more shots. What did you make of our style of play? Ultimately, how we're going to progress from one half of the pitch to the other and score goals? Because in the Champions League, we've been bagging. Premier League, we had a blip in December, but generally we've been scoring goals. That wasn't said yesterday. I can't tell you a significant opportunity we had. I know we had a couple of misglancing headers. Trossard fired into the stands. If anything, Sporting, in my opinion, had the best shots. They've obviously scored and then they hit the post in the first half. So what did you make of our build-up play, our style of play, our midfield, our attackers, everything, essentially?
It reminded me so much of Fulham away, where, we spoke a lot about Kivior inverting and how that didn't work. But I think we had a very similar thing with Ben White, where he wasn't as uncomfortable in the inverted position, but him being inverted didn't help us in the midfield at all. And it felt like we needed an additional midfielder in there. When Kai Havertz is tasked with build-up, he really flatters to deceive. And there were so many moments where they passed it into his feet and he just literally could not get the ball to Martinelli. It was like an impossible task for him to just trap it and pass it on. And so I think that the way that we set up with a midfield that probably needed an extra body, Ben White wasn't enough. And I don't think that worked for us. I'm actually surprised that Arteta didn't go with our big game lineup, the Jorginho, Declan Rice midfield. I'm surprised he didn't go with that, with the magnitude of the game away from home. And so I just feel like we kind of shot ourselves in the foot in that way. And then there was no adjustment from the manager or the players on the pitch. And we just really struggled to get beyond our patterns. Like, we kept doing the same patterns and going side to side. And whether it was they were corralling us into, pockets where we couldn't get through, it was either they had us under control or our nervousness kept us from being able to actually execute simple passes. So I have to think that we weren't set up properly. But at the same time, he was very limited in what he could do, because we have so many key players out that you would imagine if you needed to play in a Champions League game, you'd want Tommy, Thomas Partey, Jesus, and Zinchenko. All of those players have played at a very high level, and we didn't have them available.
So what do you make of Arteta's assembling of the squad? Because I agree with you 100%. Obviously, he's got what he's got, either that's on the bench or who started, and generally it has worked. But it's not like he's just taking the job. Every player that's been bought here or not bought here has been without Arteta say so. And I agree with you. Had these players have been fit, had Jorginho started, had the Parteys and Jesus and all of these guys, we might be saying the same thing, but they would have helped us. unfortunately, a lot of them are issues with injuries. So where are you at with Arteta's assembling the squad? Because he said this is the most crucial point of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to be able to justify or find a reason why I feel like going into the window in the summer and doing what we did made any sense. I feel we lack a real personality up front. I feel like we missed something in midfield. I feel like we really missed a trick by not getting either or. You know, even if we just had the 65 million to spend, that could have been spent on somebody that could really give us something up front or somebody that could really just complete the midfield. And we didn't either. And so I hate that the conversation always goes back to Kai. It's not really about Kai in particular. It's about the fact that, like, you knew what we needed and we're going to end up buying those pieces anyway, but it'll be a season too late and who knows what we will have missed out on. So yeah, I feel we're too reliant on injury prone players. I've said that so many times that I felt as though, and I was totally like, people went in on me so badly. I said, if we go into the season needing to rely on Thomas Partey to be an important part of the team, we're in trouble, and we are, because we didn't buy another midfielder, and I think a lot of Arteta's plans were based around Thomas Partey doing something in midfield, and he's not there. He's played like 4 games this season. So I feel this over reliance on players that are unavailable constantly is a problem, and then going into the window with 200 something million and coming out with what we came out with in midfield and up front is shocking, and then also doing absolutely nothing in the January window. Absolutely nothing. I don't know if they thought that they would get all these players back, but who knows when they're going to come back, so you're missing them and you didn't reinforce. And it's not enough to get like Fabio and Emil and these guys back either, because they're not key members. Like, I just don't see them stepping up. So yeah, everything kind of stems back to, what the F were we thinking in the summer window? Like, what were we doing? Did we have to get Raya? I like Raya, don't get me wrong. And I never really thought that Ramsdale was the guy for us. But did we have to get him this window? Like, could we have not just used that whatever 30 million that we've given to that? Could we have not done something else with it? Could we have not bought a striker? Like, what? I don't get it. I don't.
I agree with you, man. I think Arteta's been, in the same way I praise him for when things go well, I think he's shown a lot of naivety. I think we're going to get onto it, but I think his game management's been a bit naive at times, or his receptance to change in certain environments.
Mhm.
And I think how he's assembled the squad, like your point, and I echo it about key players being injured, not bringing in certain players. I think Kai Havertz, personally, I don't know how you feel, but where Odegaard and Rice are concerned, I think we've got 2 pieces to a 3-man puzzle. And I think yesterday, Odegaard is having to do too much because of what we're demanding on Kai Havertz. Again, as you said, and I think you put it perfectly, I'm not trying to make the conversation about Kai Havertz, but if you imagine that Xhaka is there and Zinchenko is fit, them 2 are midfielders, even though Zinchenko is playing fullback. We've lost 2 in that regard. You're making Havertz make 3rd-man runs against a condensed side, and you're not finding him. And also, now we're outnumbered. Benjamin White's inverting, which I think he did well, but he didn't do amazing. So now the relationship with Saka's gone, so we're still narrow. Kiwior, I like the fact that you've stopped him being inverted, because that's not him by trade. Kiwior didn't do anything wrong. It's just he hasn't got the skills. So literally, we're doing a bit too much then. I don't think the midfield's been sorted. I mean, me and you have spoken at length about that left eight position. I don't feel Xhaka has been replaced, and I think there is a correlation, even though Martinelli's form is taking a dive or was crap in that game, with our left-hand side, just simply put, not doing it really and truly. And I agree with you. I don't think there can be excuses over injuries, over, not having players. I am now at that stage where, for me, it's about what we do have available and judging Mikel Arteta appropriately, because you said we need 100 goals. You said Thomas Partey is vital. You said we've got one of the finished squads. At the end of the day, as much as I like the guy, it's not like you just took the job. You've been here. And how many times are you going to watch the same movie and expect something different? It does not make sense to me.
We're
On the
talking
topic
about
of
the
that,
same
go
thing.
on.
That's all I was going to say, is like, we're literally the same things that we were talking about last season. We're talking about them again.
Exactly.
Literally, especially when it comes to the cup competitions and, crunch time in the league. So I'm finding it very difficult to feel sorry for anybody, because I'm tired of saying that we flattered to deceive in Europe. We're missing certain players and we don't have the mentality. Like, if it doesn't, like we said this last season, I feel like I'm watching Europa League again. So yeah, I do. I feel like I'm watching
sad.
Europa League again.
And it's sad. It's sad that you have to say that, man, because for me yesterday, it felt like a group stage match in the Champions League. I don't think the tempo was there. Ultimately, and I think Porto's game plan was so ugly. It was beautiful. They got the ref on their side because the ref was a madman. They were compact. They were narrow. They were organized. They limited the space. We all know we struggle with low blocks. We played into their hands. And then obviously you couple with what we're talking about the lack of personnel. Ultimately, we didn't really quite set up to win. I do agree with what you said, and I'd implore you all to check out the live stream me and Jess just done, because we spoke about it more at length. I am starting to believe there was a bit of psychological factors. What do you think of Mikel Arteta's in-game management then? Because it's no doubt been highlighted with the Porto fixture.
I've always been the type of person that feels like your coach is really, really important.
Amen.
Not just from a coaching you like when you're at like training, but how they approach the game. The way that they can get a team into a certain mental state for a big match is important. And I feel like we maybe failed a little bit because the level to which the team looked nervous and unable to solve problems or just stabilize things is just not like them. It was very like uncharacteristic to them on a regular basis. But if we do see these, we usually see this type of performance in games that really matter in cups. So I'm finding it like, okay, maybe Mikel doesn't know how to approach really big games, one-off knockouts, because it's not the same approach as the league. The league is just like repetition, get the points, get the points, get the points, get the points, get the points. Where the knockouts, I do think you have to tap into like a different mentality
I think it
where
comes down to moments in the knockouts, man. Just
yeah,
like
it's
yesterday, man.
really about moments. It really is, and I feel like we don't have that. We just don't have that. Maybe we approach it like a league game, because I mean, we did go in with the exact same lineup and like the exact same lineup for Porto that we did against Burnley and West Ham. So maybe Arteta just thought treat it like a league game, but it was nothing like a league game. We were in uncharted territories in a stadium that's not anything like a Premier League
We
stadium
ain't got
against a
European
manager that's
pedigree
ready.
either.
No European pedigree,
We
nothing.
don't
And
travel well
so
to Portugal.
exactly. So I feel like Mikel is finding it difficult to maneuver between like he needs to maybe sit with Unai Emery for a couple of days and say, what do you need to do in order to do well in cup competitions and or like European, because Unai had that unlock, but maybe he didn't have the league.
It's
It's
like
like, so we
polar
got
opposites
one of
now.
we got polar opposites. So, and we know there's a difference. We know there's a difference. The energy is just different. And we don't seem to be able to come up to that energy. Like, I just didn't see anybody really, we did literally nothing in that game. There were no moments. There was there was nothing. I literally can't remember anything that we did because everybody was just like, it was like a malaise.
So why were
It's
the players
weird.
nervous then? If they were like,
Um,
if the players were nervous, like how much do the players have to take accountability? Because I think Arteta's job is to transmit confidence in his game plan and things. But once the players cross the line, it's them. So if the players were nervous, how much responsibility do they have to take? And if our players
They
were
have so
nervous, how
much
do you feel?
responsibility. They have so much responsibility. Like, some of these players are not that young anymore, and some of them do have experience. So I don't necessarily feel like me thinking that Arteta didn't maybe set up well or didn't really maybe prepare for the magnitude of the occasion that is the Champions League, knockouts. That does not relieve any sort of responsibility from players that we rate so very highly to put
Facts.
in a disaster class that they did. I think what we tend to do is we really like we almost cave to the occasion too often, where it's not working for us, so we kind of take the easy way out and just kind of like, oh, like there was like a level of like almost like sulking. Like I don't want to say that they were so, but it felt like, oh my god, things aren't going our way. And that's unacceptable. Like, we don't know what's going to happen beyond now. So this might be your opportunity. For them not to be able to seize opportunities like this, for me, is a little damning on them, because I have much higher expectations for some of the players. And I thought they really just kind of like were like, well, it's a shitty day out. Let's just cave to it, instead of like, listen, we may not be able to win this game, but we are not going to the Emirates like with a loss. And
With
we
an
did
empty hand, which
everything
we
in
all
our
know.
power to give them a lead. We did everything in our power to do it. It's just annoying.
Lost
Yeah.
the ball
So
3 times in that little passage, and even that, who do you blame for the goal? Because we gave the ball around 3 times. Many people are going to look at Raya. People could say Declan Rice and whoever's next to him could have stopped it. Obviously, Martinelli, if he's a bit cuter and cleverer, that doesn't happen. Do they all have to take blame, or does it start and stop with one particular player for you?
I feel like it was the collective. Like I said, like the nervous energy goes around our team like contagion. When we're bad, it's like everybody starts to pick it up, and then it spirals. And I feel like we spiraled in that moment. I feel like
It's
everybody knew
infectious.
that we only had 30 minutes or 30 seconds to go, and they almost they could not help themselves but to fuck it up. Like it was like it was like a conspiracy against themselves. Like, but we do it all the time. So I think yesterday it was a collective loss. I'm finding it hard to pinpoint it on anybody specifically, because even if Mikel sets you up in a way or doesn't prepare you in a certain way, that does not mean that you are not responsible for not being able to trap a freaking ball. That doesn't
Fact.
mean that it's okay to miss just like very obvious switches of play or, whatever. It doesn't relieve them of that responsibility. So I know everybody wants a scapegoat, and it's easy to scapegoat because it's easy to run agendas in that way. But genuinely, that goal was everybody's fault. It was
Fact.
literally everybody's fault. I think Gabrielle messes up a little bit before that. I think Martinelli messes up. I think Declan can get closer. I think because even Odegaard is waving like Martinelli
Fact.
to pass that ball. He said, "Do it.
And
This
then
is
we're
your
trying to go for a
captain."
counter attack. Had it have went off, it would have been amazing, but it didn't. So we can only talk about what we're
Yeah.
talking about now.
And for a team to be incredibly conservative the entire game, as if they're afraid to concede, for them to pick that moment not to be conservative is just like,
Do you think we're too
there's
emotional then?
yeah, like maybe we are still a little bit too emotional and we can't like lock in. But yeah, there's only so much. I can't give excuses anymore, because as young as they are, they're not that young anymore. Like Ben White's 25, Gabrielle's 25, like Declan Rice is
Fact.
25, Odegaard's 25, Trossard's 30. So everybody's like, it's not like we have kids out there for real, so I don't know.
I'm with you with that, man. I mean, I do think there's certain naiveties that we show, especially we've shown we're a good team. We now need to make ways into becoming a great team to win trophies. But as you said, it's not, if there was a young Koza Jubi out there, 18 years of age, never kicked a professional ball, I'd hear
Yeah.
it. But if you're on the young side, you've all got transferable experience. Kai Havertz has won this competition. I was crying out for Jorginho to come off the bench. When he came off the bench, he was crap, but he's won this competition. Odegaard's been around the block. Saka's been around the block in this club. If you haven't played in the champs, you've played in the Europa. There's all transferable experience. You've all played in enough hostile grounds, and I think it was just a culmination of things. I don't think Saliba's a full guy, but I even think Saliba didn't play to his same high standards.
Yeah,
really.
but
What do you make?
his form has been
It's kind
spotty
of gone a bit crazy
for a
really.
while. Yeah. And the one thing I will say is, like, if we can say anything with certainty, is that I feel like under Mikel Arteta, our biggest Achilles heel in Europe is the away. Even
That's
whether
where the
it's in
damage is
group
done, the first
stages
leg.
or knockouts, because we, like, a lot of times it feels like we're away first, and
Yeah.
we set ourselves up for failure away. Like, you think about last season, even in the Europa League, like, we were terrible away from home. We were
Your
terrible
guy
against
Kirill ducking headers in that from corners.
Zurich. They were awful. Like, and that's an awful team.
That's
But they
true.
were terrible. They were terrible
Even
against
PSV, to age your point, I'm
PSV.
sure PSV in the group stage.
We
You might
lost
be
to
right.
them. We
Yeah,
lost.
yeah. We
Yeah.
was pony in that.
Bodo Glimt, awful. Awful.
You're triggering
Sporting,
memories I thought I
awful.
erased, I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
So it's like, and then in the Champions League, we won one game away. One in the group stage, Sevilla. And it wasn't like it was like smooth sailing either, because we still conceded in like the 70th minute. So we're not good away from home. So our approach away from home in Europe has got to improve, because it sets us up very poorly at home. And the level of angst that I know we're going to have in the Emirates is going to be wild. If we don't score in them first 20 minutes, long.
So why do you think that is then? Because like, you know, we lost to Lens. We did beat Sevilla. I think we, on the whole of it, I think it was one of the better away performances, but it was kind of like that. Obviously, you know, you've mentioned all the other examples with PSV, and we've currently lost to Porto away from home in the Premier League. I know we've lost to Fulham away from home, and there's definitely been games like at Stamford Bridge where we could have done better. But generally, I don't think there's too much difference beyond the obvious when we go away from home. The Champions League is a different ball game based on what we're talking about. Why do you think that is?
I just feel like the players get overawed by the environment. That's genuinely what I feel. I feel like when we're not comfy at home, especially in Europe, we get overawed, and then like the things aren't in our control. You know, everything is just different. The environment is different. The fans are different. Everything is different. It's a new experience. Um, and then the way that we approach it is as if we're at home. I feel like we approach it as if we're at the carpet, and I
Bit
just don't
lax,
think
yeah.
I don't think we should approach it like that. I feel like we should be a little bit more. I feel like there's like we can be more direct, but I wish we had the ability to be a little bit more direct. And we really do play into these teams' hands. Like if they're the home team, they should feel like they need to impress upon us.
Their fans
But
should be nervous.
what we do is they play like the away team, and that fully goes into their way of play. I feel like we need to be a little bit cuter with the way that we play, and we should be a little bit more direct, but we don't really have a way to be direct because we don't have pace or physicality or anything up
Unless
front.
Havertz goes up front, which would mean no
Yeah,
Trossard, no
exactly.
Jesus, or some sort of change.
Yeah, because it's always the same. We're standing at the halfway line, like slow on the ball, trying to figure out a way to get
Side to
through,
side.
and we're afraid to lose the ball because we know we're going to get done on the counter. There has to be a way where we make the home team have to play like the home team, because we're actually very good when we have less of possession. One of the best things about Arsenal is when we have like 30% possession, I feel like we're a much more effective team.
There could potentially be more purpose to how we play.
Exactly. But I don't know how you make that happen. I'm not a coach. I don't know how you make it so that they have to be the home team. But when we go away from home in Europe, we're like the home team, but not playing with our fans. And I just don't think that suits us.
Facts.
I just don't.
And
I
it's a
just don't.
weird one because, like, I do know. Listen, Arteta is a great coach. He does great individual and collective things. He does go with a game plan. But on the basis of what I saw with my own eyes yesterday, it felt lifeless. It felt like either the players weren't sticking to the script, or the script you're giving them there's an inability to us to get 3 points or go through to the next round. It felt a bit lifeless. It felt a bit mundane. It felt a bit
Flat.
predictable. Exactly. And to like what you said, you know, like I don't think we were going direct enough. So I don't really understand why Kai Havertz is there, because fair enough, I might have my criticisms about build-up play, but if he's going to run forward and make those third man runs, at least hit him. Benjamin White inverting, I understand it with Kyrgios's limitations, but then Saka is at the halfway line. Our left-hand side, as we said on your stream, is Pony. So I kind of think we're playing into opposition's hands, really. And even though I think it's a bit ignorant of me and basic for me to ask you this, like, but many fans will say it on socials. Where it comes to Saka and Martinelli, more so Saka, because obviously he's better than Martinelli. Many people will say to be a good player, you've got to make the difference and all of that sort of stuff. How do you feel about them two in big moments, and especially yesterday?
I feel like sometimes it's like very sometimey. Because I don't want to sit here and say that I've never seen Saka step up in a big moment, because I have, but it's not in Europe or the cups. And there's really a mental block with this team when it comes to cup competitions. So if you only can do it, you know, in the Premier League, then I guess we have to put an asterisk next to whether or not you are the guy, because I feel like,
Is he world class then? While
yeah,
you're going on with your
to
point,
me, he's still world class. But I wouldn't just change it based on this game. Because I also just feel like in general, everybody was like horrendous, you know, but I kind of get what people are saying. Like if your definition of world class is like very much so dependent on what you do in the big games, then I can understand that this is like the perfect example of why he's not. But my personal definition of somebody that's world class is somebody who's top 3 in their position for multiple years. And I still feel like Saka is that, you know, but for him to be a legend or a GOAT, that's where I feel like the moments have to be so much better. And I think he'll get there. But yeah, it's a tough one. I feel like Martinelli and Saka were incredibly poor on the day and gave pretty much nothing. Not like they didn't try, but like they just, you know, they blocked out that middle section Trossard was on like an island by himself and it could not be accessed in any way.
Our
So
front
they
three was
forced us,
stifled, man. Great
yeah, and
tactics from
they
them.
forced us down the wings. And one of the problems that we have with Saka and Martinelli is the wider that they are, I feel like the less effective they are.
Even the deeper they are, because Saka's receiving it on the halfway
Yeah,
line. I agree with that point, because you look
yeah,
at half of these lots highlights, it's when they're running in behind, or it's against the run of play, and for Saka he can cut in on his left, or do that
yeah.
trademark right foot shot, or Martinelli. Definitely more so with Martinelli, I would say your point, because as we both know, Martinelli is better than, and it's something he needs to bring into his game, in my opinion, and we both know this. When Martinelli has less time to think, he's substantially better. It's like his head gets clouded. There's too many options and things. But if you add in them two and then Trossard, and all three of them were crap, it goes back to what we're saying about the tactics. Fair enough, the way Porto set up could have stifled us, but that's where I think Mikel Arteta has to learn. I don't doubt he was trying different things, but we're becoming marked people now. We're known as a sort of trademark way of playing. We're getting better as a football club. I wanted to ask you though, because we've been touching on cups, and many people say Arsenal at this moment in time, we're more suited to potentially winning the cup now. I don't know for the Champions League. Are we more suited, not necessarily this season, but in theory, are we more suited to winning a cup or the Premier League, or a league, better yet, hypothetically?
I mean, I feel like when people say the cup thing, it's because people associate cup football with being more direct and having better 1v1 defenders and
More on
being
the day as well.
athletic. And I do think that tracks, but we are a league team, and that's all we are. We are a league side. We have the ability, in terms of the players that we have, to be really good like in these cup competitions, but we don't apply it. So until further notice, we are a league team. Arsenal for the last 3 seasons have been a very good or Champions League level league team, where we can get 2.5 points per game on a regular basis. And I feel like, when we finished 5th in the league, I feel like we were only like 2 points away. Then we finished 2nd, and now we'll finish in the Champions League positions again. So we are a league side. We are not a good cup team. And the only time that we were a good cup team, and I hate to bring this up, like, because I know people will be like, I'm not trying to invalidate the FA Cup, but it was our only way of getting anything out of that season. If we had to, we're fully out of anything in the league. So what I think we have, another thing that needs to be discussed is, can we walk and chew gum at the same time? Can we do the league thing and the cup game at the same time? Can we? Because I don't think we can.
We don't have the depth.
Yeah,
among other things.
Yeah, because the only way that we can do it, that we did it, was when the league was done. We finished 8th. We knew that the only way to get European football was to win the FA Cup. So we threw all our eggs into that basket. If we have to do more than one thing at a time, most of the time we can kind of do the league. But the cups, I mean, I said it made no sense the way that we went out of the Carabao Cup. None.
That's one of our worst performances of the season for me.
We rotated, so it makes sense. No, you guys, the performance doesn't make sense. Going out,
exactly,
I can understand, but the performance level is exactly. When have we had a good performance in a cup? Genuinely.
In recent years, no. In recent years, we haven't. At a push, I might sit here and say Liverpool in the FA Cup recently, but ultimately we went out. I do think we were the better team, but then we showed a lack of street smartness. Yeah. Other than that, to aid your point, I'd be scratching my head. So then,
Lens at home and PSV at home. That's it. And those are still like, it's not.
And that was a group we should be going through anyways. Many people saying it's a Europa League group in the champs. Respectfully to them.
Knockouts, we are not. I cannot remember a good performance.
So why do you think? So then, for Arteta specifically, why do you think in cup competitions with a focus on Europe, why do you think he specifically has struggled? Because as you said, with Emre was struggling in the league. He was the Europa League man. Arteta, it feels like the polar opposite, with the exception of the FA Cup, which was during COVID.
I don't think our way of play is. The way that we play, I don't think it translates to the knockouts. I just don't I don't think it translates because one, I don't think first, I never felt like Arteta had the tactical flexibility. I still feel that way. I feel like he applies plan A, and if plan A doesn't work,
plan A or die trying.
Yeah. And the 10% of the time that we don't win is the cup games where you need to be more tactically flexible. That is our biggest Achilles heel. we'll beat 90% of the teams with the way that we do things now. But the way these one-off games are happening, it's difficult, you know. So he needs to have more tactical flexibility, I feel like, and he needs to figure out what our formula is going to be in terms of like being able to not have all the possession, being able to be more direct, being able to make in-game changes without it messing. Yeah, and it doesn't always have to mean that like you have more like different players out there. Like I still feel like you should be able to tactically change things around at halftime with the same players that you have. And that's one of the main things that remember we talked about with Klopp during like we had the poor period, and we were talking about like, is at the same time they announced that Klopp was going to leave, and we spoke about what's one thing that we wish we could take away with Klopp. One of the main things is his ability to change things at halftime without making substitutions. If you only can change things around with subs, and even with subs things look the same, I'm looking at your tactics look funny in the light to me, because he should be able to make changes and say like, do this, do that, do this, do that, and we don't do it.
He tried it yesterday. It didn't really work with Trossard and Havertz's change. That's it. So I your point. That's what I agree with you. Really,
we needed more midfield. Like you needed to figure out a way to get us more going in midfield. I don't know what we could have done, but like, yeah, like I don't know. I hated yesterday.
You're not alone. We all hated it then. It's a difficult one because where Arteta is concerned, I do think a manager has to, and maybe it's because I'm a Wenger baby, but you have to have a way of playing and a healthy stubbornness of that. And I do feel that he does change little things. I don't think since he's come into the club, you know, where we do the dirty things a lot better. We put a bit of gloss on it, but essentially, you know, if it was an Arsenal, a lot of people wouldn't be praised for set pieces. We show it in little bits and pieces with Raya going long to a Kai Havertz, and there's a couple of highlights throughout a season with that, but it's not something that is like we don't aggressively do it. It's just a little thing. Why do you think Arteta has a reluctance to have a plan B then, or be flexible in that regards? Is he just stubborn enough that this is my way or the highway, or is that just not him really? Is it from the Pep school of thought? Even Pep's changed how he plays really, but yeah.
But I think the problem with the way that we do things is that you can't apply how Pep does things because he has an abundance of riches and tons of like world-class talent. Yeah, and tons of world-class talent that makes the difference. Like, I feel like if you're going to play your way no matter what, you have to have those types of players in your team that make it so that it's like 99% you're going to win. Right now, we're at like 90%. We're going to win. And 10% is a lot of games that you lose, in my opinion. But, you know, Pep can play their way 99% of the time. And even if they come up against teams that stop them from doing certain things, they have Haaland or KDB or Bernardo Silva that will just kind of make the difference. And that's to me, that's the main difference between Arsenal and Man City is that, and this is where I feel like, yeah, people will be like, well, you said these players are world-class, so how could they be world-class? But there is kind of like a little bit of a barrier between like Saka and Odegaard's ability to be that game changer, where KDB and Haaland don't have that, or KDB and Bernardo Silva have that. Like, they need to gain that clutch gene, or we need to bring somebody in to do it. And I feel like that player is going to come in the form of a striker for Arsenal, in my personal opinion. I think Saka and Odegaard are such facilitators that they need somebody that they could pass the ball to make that happen, where I feel like KDB is more of a forward / goal scorer, so he can do that a little bit more. I don't know what your opinion on that is, but if you're going to play this way, where you're going to have all the possession and teams are going to be able to sit in deep blocks against you and mid blocks against you and make it difficult for you to do that, then you have to have that special elite talent in there that can break the game open no matter what, that are inevitable in a way. And I feel like that's the one thing that we're missing if we want to continue to play this way. If you don't have that, then you need to be more flexible in the way that you play. You need to have different looks. And right now we're kind of teetering in between, like, we want to be City, but we don't have City's players. So we need to be more flexible. What is your thought on it?
And this is the jarring thing, man. I think beyond the obvious, clearly there's a gulf in class between Arsenal and City and the majority of our players. I think the main thing is street smartness. And this is what, for me, as much as I like the fact of the romance around Arsenal, you know, young managers, young technical directors, young players, we're all growing. But this is where it can get frustrating, because on one hand, it is the project. But on the other hand, you know, winning is now in it. And we show our inexperience with Mikel Arteta, with Saka and Martinelli and Odegaard not quite being where you want. I agree with what you're saying. I just feel, for me, if we want to do that, we need a striker, as you said, and I can't get over it. For me, it's central midfield. Like, it really, like, I'm not saying alienate Havertz, get rid of him and things, but and he can't play games. But that midfield, man, we sort out that left 8. You will, and obviously people need to stay fit, but you sort out that left 8. Timber or one of them at left back, we're sorted. Martinelli or Trossard, whoever on the left, we're sorted. Odegaard can stay further up the pitch. Even yesterday, if we had an 8 and Benjamin White's inverting, Odegaard pulls over. As you know yourself, football's about relationships, and it does feel kind of like we shoot ourselves in the foot in that regard.
And we need the ability to act like, I know that's like, we talked about this a lot, but I don't feel like them setting up in a way where they're trying to keep us from accessing central spaces should make us not even try to be in between the lines. Because I remember only one time Odegaard going in between the lines, and Ben White did pass it to him, and it broke the game open. Just because they don't want us to access those spaces does not mean that we shouldn't do it at all.
Just because they said don't open the door doesn't mean we shouldn't try to open it or kick it down.
And I didn't understand why we didn't just try it still. But I think it was coming from, one, being cautious about, if you lose the ball in central areas, you're exposed in central areas. But I still feel like that's the risk you have to take in order to impose yourself on a game where you're being asked to be the aggressor away from home, which again, still just is like, I don't always want to be the aggressor away from home if we're not going to be aggressive. Do you know what I mean? If you have the possession and they're telling you that you're the better team, even if we're at home,
don't be like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm scared. You do it.
And we wouldn't do it. We did it one time. And he said that, the coach said that Odegaard and Kai Havertz like to be in between the spaces, but we didn't allow them. I'm like, I actually don't think it was that you didn't allow us to. I think we just said we're too afraid to put ourselves in that risky position. So we're not going to do it. I don't like that. I'd rather see
thinks about, go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that, because of what you said, do you think Arteta, it sounds dumb because a manager should, but do you think he thinks about the opposition too much to a point where it kind of harms what we want to do then?
I think last season, we only cared about what we did. That's it. So we would be open at the back. We didn't care because we knew that, like, all we cared about is, like, we knew we were going to score. We backed ourselves. Sometimes it shot us in the foot, but the freeness in which we scored goals last season is something that I still haven't seen this season. We usually are ahead, so we don't have to think about it, but I would not want to see this team having to come back from behind, because I don't know if we have it in us.
We're going to have to next week against Porto, man. Don't say that.
I think we have to score first, because this team has to be in front first. It doesn't have the same thing as last season. Weird. Yeah, because this team is scared to concede. And I think that's because Arteta is, like, maybe he's damaged from last season. I don't know. But, like, I just feel
Rob Holding will do that to you.
Yeah, Rob Holding will definitely do that to you. But he needs to, like, are we who we say we are, or are we not? Are we the team that should be sitting in the low block, 5-4-1 and bearing down the hatches, or are we the aggressor? Because if we're going to be aggressive, then we need to be aggressive in the way that we play, not just sitting at the halfway line, tippy-tapping with the ball. It was driving me insane. I was like, pass between the lines.
You just want to see us force it on occasion, man. Like, just to keep them guessing, because it can become a bit scripted. And I do like how we play football, but I agree with what you're saying in that there needs to be a serious flip side to it. Then, like, so obviously with us losing to Porto and the Champions League being in the balance and the Premier League being all right, how do you still rate our chances of bringing either home or winning a trophy, or is it still a myth?
I said at the beginning of the season, our best chance of winning a trophy was the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, and we shot the bed in both. So, the idea that we're going to be out of this Champions League for 7 years and come back in it and just magically win it, Arsenal fans are so unserious.
Very romantic to the point where it's
so unserious. Deluded. And I guess, like, as a football fan, you have to have a level of delusion, because not all of us support teams that win all the time. So you have to have a level of delusion. But our best chance of winning anything was a domestic cup because the route to it is a lot easier, I think. I feel like that's obvious. But I'd never really rated our chances in the Champions League because of our lack of experience, and we're showing it very early on. Um, and then now December was very fatal for the Premier League. It just was.
That's our May of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, it was fatal. And like, I know people say, well, we're not out of it. So how can you be so negative? I'm like, I'm not negative. I'm doing the math. Like, I'm looking at it.
I wish I could frame that sentence.
Yeah, you can't, you literally cannot have watched football your entire life.
It's out of our hands now, man.
Yeah, and seeing that it's out of our hands. When it was in our hands, we couldn't do it. So now that it's out of our hands, what do you think our chances are? Losing to West Ham. Like, here's my thing. Liverpool and Man City are less likely to lose against the smaller teams than we are. I think we are susceptible to losing to the small teams. We may be able to get nick points from them, but we can still go to the Etihad and get smashed like we usually do. And I feel like we're more susceptible to losing to Newcastle at home.
Dropping the points we shouldn't be dropping.
Points here and there.
The big games we do all right, generally.
Yeah, because Liverpool, as much as people were like, Luton, yeah, Luton. I was like, be serious. Yeah. They're going to smash them because they don't lose to the small teams like we do. West Ham and Fulham was fatal. I don't know what to tell people.
I agree with you, man. Like the January period, and I think unlike last season, this year what's harmed us is, well, up until we got to May, it's like we'd lose one game and we're back at it. You can't afford to have that. And then it's a bit of a weird one because I think in line with our project, we're never going to win a league title. But then to play devil's advocate to you, just some people would say, obviously, with us fighting for a league last year, and with you saying, which I agree with, FA Cup, League Cup is our best shot. If we can win a Premier or a Champs, we'll see how it plays out. What is the point of the project? What are we here for? Because was we not moving in that direction then? And if an FA Cup is as best as we could do, is Arteta the guy for the job, being devil's advocate?
I mean, like I've always said that, like, I'm not opposed to a conversation around whether or not the manager is good enough. Because I just don't feel like I'm apprehensive about going Arteta out every single time that we lose a game, but I'm not apprehensive about having a conversation about, like, okay, you've been here 4.5 years, and if we haven't won anything besides the FA Cup that you won early on in your tenure, then I'm concerned about whether or not that's going to change. Because, I mean, it's not like you haven't had ample amount of time and resources, so
keyword resources.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that I believe 100% he's the guy. I still feel like, there's question marks around him. But in terms of like the project and stuff like that, and like, if we're not winning, then what's the point? I do think that, like, we have to remember that we were very much so like a laughing stock before Mikel Arteta came in. We're
competitive again, man. Look where we are, even though we ain't won nothing.
Exactly. We have a very short-term memory, and
such as life.
Yeah. So it's not like we haven't improved at all. I feel like we're so reactionary and heavy-handed with everything. It's like, well, because we're not winning the Premier League, it's all for nothing. It's not all for nothing, because in order for, like, where we are right now,
I hate to be that guy, but it is a process.
Yeah. And if Mikel Arteta were to leave today, which I've always said this, if he were to leave today, I would give him so much credit, because he has rebuilt us to a certain point where I feel like we are a very attractive proposition to a top manager, where when he came in, I don't think you could have asked a top manager to come and save us. So it is important. Like, just because you're not winning titles does not mean that everything is for naught. But we still need to be pushing for that. So if we can't bring that, then we have to have those conversations. But I feel like people are extremely disingenuous about
100%
about all of this. Like, we were not here. We were a laughing stock.
If he left tomorrow, would you define his tenure as a success then, or a failure?
Yeah, I would. I would say it's a success. Because personally, I never thought he'd last this long. And I didn't want him.
There was some dark days.
Yeah, I never thought he would last this long. Because I didn't want him. I didn't. I'm very honest about that. I was like, I just don't understand why we do it. And I think leaving us in a better place than he found us is a success based on what my expectations of him were, which was very low. I was like, absolutely not. This is not going to work. And I think for the most part it has. But having a manager that's never managed before, we've definitely seen the the pains
naivities.
of that. We definitely have, so
Serious growing pains. He's learning on the job, which could be
yeah.
at our detriment. But that's what I said on your stream a few weeks ago, where I said I don't want Arteta's tenure here to be in vain. I don't want you to learn the good, bad, and the ugly. Go somewhere else and think. When I was doing that at Arsenal, and that didn't work, so let me not do that. And ultimately, we don't enjoy the fruits of the labor, really. So that's always my thing. I would say in terms of the rebuild and stuff like that, history might not be nice to him, but he has made us more competitive. Contracts have been tied down. There is a brand of football. I don't think many people, including myself, would probably say, that's what a manager should be doing. But I think it's been a success in that regards. But as I said on your stream, check that out, folks. It's out already. This conversation is now shifting to, okay, cool. That's great. One love for the rebuild. Titles, because it does feel because it does feel for me, no matter how good Liverpool or City are, and you can never negate that. The variables we can control, the controllables we can control. We don't control them. Having the squad we need, winning certain games, having a certain mentality, not stopping ruts. We shouldn't. Arsenal Football Club should never be talking about a lack of goals or a lack of creativity in the 8th position. So why am I having this? Why is there question marks over midfield when Edu, technical sporting director, better yet, and Mikel Arteta were midfielders? For me, I'm looking at it very simple, but for me, it don't really make sense. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure, man.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like if I had to give it a grade, I would say that the rebuild has been probably like a B. We've done a lot of good, but have we done as good as we possibly can? No. I
Could we have
think
done a bit more in certain regards?
yeah,
Have we shot ourselves in the foot unnecessarily at times? I think we have.
exactly. So that's still a success, but there's definitely room for improvement. Whether or not Edu and Arteta have the capabilities to get better from here or to be what we need, because I feel like Arsenal deserves the best in class in everything: the best players, the best manager, the best directors of football, all that kind of stuff.
Should all the
And
top 6 be
yeah,
aspiring to have that? Yeah,
exactly. So if you're like a very good person at your job, you're going to improve the company that you're at. But that doesn't mean you're the best. And I still feel like I don't think we have the best. And so if they can't become that, I'll pack your bags, but I'll thank
See
you
you
on the
later,
way
man.
out. I'll thank you
Arrivederci.
on the way out. I don't want to hate Arteta when he leaves. That's like another thing too. Is
You
like
said
I've
that
always
before.
said, I want to look back on his time like fondly. So timing is key when you move on from managers. I'm not saying we have to move on from him now. That's not what I'm saying. But I sometimes feel like it's better to do it when you're in a position of strength rather than a place of weakness.
As we
That's
saw
all.
with Wenger, very different, but you overstayed your welcome and things like that. So then obviously, like, we've got Newcastle on the weekend. Now our Premier League form's
Yeah.
been good. We've shot ourselves in the foot in the Champions League. That might have dented some fans' confidence. What are you expecting from Newcastle? Are you confident for Newcastle? And you'd imagine we have to win. It sounds cliche, but it feels like every game is a must-win in the Premier League, at least until the City game on the 31st of March. So where are you at with the Newcastle game on Saturday?
I don't like Newcastle at all. And like I don't like anybody, but I really don't like Newcastle.
That's
I
harsh,
just
man.
find their whole like hard, English club thing, but we're
We know
actually
what we're
back.
expecting.
Yeah, but we're actually backed by like a nation state. Very clever branding, but I see who you are. I know who you are. Like you're not fooling me, And like it feels like everybody else is fooled by the bullshit. I'm like, no. Like they're dirty, they do a lot of nonsense. They're not a very good team, but they're the type of team that, they will score goals, like they will hurt you. Like any other team in the
Tavares is
Premier
coming
League.
to elbow our players on Saturday. I know
Yeah,
that much.
and so we're weakened, we're a wounded animal, flying high, and we tend to let things fester and can't turn the ship around quick enough. And so if I'm a Newcastle fan or a Newcastle player, I'm thinking we have a very good chance of getting something at the Emirates, because if we sit in a mid to low block and foul them to death and stop them from being able to play their game, then they will falter and give us a goal at the end. So that's what I'm thinking. Now, going through that against Porto, I expect us to have an answer for it. Like I'm tired of seeing the
I hope
same
so.
story. So I expect a different lineup, to be honest. If that's the only way that we can change the tactics around, I expect a different lineup. And I expect a different energy. Like I do not want to see sulky, sad, anxious faces. I
We're
want to
playing at the
see,
Emirates. They can't afford to do that, man. The best way
yeah,
to get over something is to, get 3 points.
yeah, exactly. So I really hope that they don't crumble, under the pressure. Like, put the Champions League to the side. This is the Premier League. And right now we don't have any margin for error. We have to win like every single game if we even want to have like a shot, because Man City and Liverpool are not dropping a lot of points.
Liverpool have 2 L's this season. City are the big bad bullies.
Exactly. So you gotta win.
So
This is a game
football's
you
a
have to
simple
win.
game. We've got to win.
Yeah.
You're right, man. We need to be getting 3 points. And where you at with changes? You mentioned changes. Obviously, you could talk about Jorginho. Maybe one of Martinelli or Trossard could move and Havertz goes up front. I'm not sure on the fitness of Jesus and Zinchenko or Tomiyasu, but we'd all love them to be involved. I would say Thomas Partey. I am saying Thomas Partey, but I'm pretty sure you're the only content creator more tired of the Thomas Partey thing than me, and I'm very tired. The quality player, not worth speaking on, and for me. So yeah, what changes, if any? Would you swap Raya out for Ramsdale, maybe even?
Oh, hell no. Okay, so I would just go like, honestly, I feel like if I'm anticipating them doing something quite similar, which I'm expecting Eddie Howe to be on nonsense and to try to
just
stop
like
us from
when we was at their place.
Exactly. Actually, our away game against Newcastle was very similar to Porto as well. We were very disrupted in our play. We didn't create a single chance on goal, and we got caught out like on one opportunity. So
And then
I
begging for
expect them.
VAR to let us off.
And the last time that they played at home at the Emirates, they stunk it out and got a 0-0. So if I'm seeing that again, and I know that the team or the midfield that I had the other day couldn't break through, then I'm damn sure not playing the same one. I'm not like.
That's true. As Arteta says, it's his job to find solutions.
Yeah. So I would play Jorginho. I would do the big game midfield. So at least you'll have more penetrative passes with Jorginho, and it'll allow Declan Rice to do what he does best.
And Martin Odegaard.
Yeah. And if you don't have Zinchenko, then I feel like you have to add that back in a little bit against deeper blocks, and then make a decision on Martinelli. I would probably
for me, man.
I'd probably drop him. Especially because I'm anticipating the spaces being smaller, which means the decisions need to be better. And so far, his decision-making this season has been on the floor. So Trossard on the left, Havertz through the middle, Saka on the right, midfield, big game midfield, and we'll probably see the same back line because I just don't see Tomiyasu or Zinchenko being fit for some reason.
I think for me, if Tomiyasu's fit, it's harsh on Kyrgios because he ain't put a foot wrong. I just feel a bit more secure with Tomiyasu naturally in the team. So I'd say Tomiyasu comes in. I know people will get at Raya for the goal we conceded against Porto. I think Raya, you're staying. Saka's going to play. Now that I said it, Martinelli will start and score, but I'll probably move Trossard over to the left-hand side. If Jesus is fit and fit enough to at least play an hour, I think he goes up front for me. And I think the midfield... I'm with the Jorginho thing. It's a weird one because, like I said on your stream, I do think Kai Havertz has to play because of what he kind of gives you with the defending and the height and whatnot. But I think I'd go Rice, Jorginho, and Odegaard just because at least Jorginho knows his role. And that just means, as you said, Declan Rice and Odegaard, they're kind of free to just do what they're doing. I felt against Porto, and I have felt even in the games that we've walked over teams like Burnley and West Ham in the Prem, they're still having to overcompensate because Havertz is not really that kind of guy. And I don't see light at the end of the tunnel necessarily with Mikel Arteta with that. I hope I'm wrong. I wouldn't have signed him for 65 million. That's why I'm on YouTube, and that's why he's the Arsenal manager. So please prove me wrong. But I don't know, man. I just hope we win the game. I don't care how you do it. Just win the game. Get a bit of confidence going into, obviously, the second leg against Porto, where I'm sure we both agree. We hope we do better there. I've got to talk to you about 3 quick things before I let you get out of here. Pedro Neto, allegedly David Ornstein wants saying Wolves want 80 million from me. If we can get it done for 60, I'm all for that. I don't know where you're at with Pedro Neto and now the price tag.
I'm on a flight. I'm on a flight to Spain to convince Nico Williams to come to the club because that is madness. That is a madness number. And I understand that, like, obviously you start high and hope that you get a little bit less. But with his injury record and the fact that because we've recruited poorly in past windows, we still need 4 or 5 players again in another summer window. We can't. I would not. And I don't like his injury record anyway. So I'm thinking I need a discount for damaged goods, and I'm not getting a discount. So Nico Williams, you'll be fine. Come on.
I'm I'm on it, man. Do you know what? I'm a big fan of Pedro Neto because he is explosive. Arteta has clearly tried to sign him, Mudryk, and Rafinha once, so that's clearly an earmark. He's shown he can play left and the right. Can play, he's 23 years of age, so he's impressionable. I think it's a bit of gamesmanship from Wolves. They have got him contracted for a while, but they both know. Well, sorry, him and Wolves know that, like you said, you're not getting 80 million because of his injuries. As the market goes on, I think there'll be a bit of bargaining and bartering in that. Maybe depending on the level of interest from Pedro Neto. You've heard Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, and actually City. Maybe he angles for a move and his agent is George Mendes. So that opens up the box for not just Premier League clubs, but maybe Europe. But simply put, it's overpriced. We all know we're probably going to spend about 200 million. You'd imagine the big ticket item in the summer would be a striker. Centre mid needs investment. And I do think we need a winger. But as you alluded to with Nico Williams, maybe there's a bit of, alternatives. And we have heard actually that Arsenal are not convinced with him because of the injury record. Again, next one, Arsenal have been linked with Ollie Watkins. Now, I said it on the stream. I think if you want Ivan Toney, which we're going to get onto, I think Ollie Watkins should be one. I think he suits our system a bit more. I think Aston Villa asks for too much. But what is it, 18 goals and about 10 assists in the Premier League for someone who was an Arsenal fan and Premier League proven, although the 28-year-old is contracted until 2028. We'll have to see where you at with potentially Ollie Watkins. I know clearly the man's not your first choice. Look at her face, people. Turning up her nose at the guy. Maybe if he had a Spanish last name, he might be good.
Ollie Watkins is better than Toney. So there's that. The numbers back it up. The consistency in the Premier League backs it up. So he's better than Ivan Toney. What I do like about him is that he is a true goal scorer poacher. Like he is going to be, I looked at this the other day on one of my shows, is how many touches in the box. He's in the box all the time. Indeed. So I don't want a player that is outside of the box consistently. I feel like we already have that. We have Gabriel Jesus. He's one of the best false nines that you could possibly buy, so we don't need another one of those. We need somebody in the box. So Ollie Watkins is interesting. We've been linked with him for so long.
That's why I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, and I feel like there's also like this element of, I don't know why I get this feeling that I feel like somebody in the club wants an English striker for some reason. The Solanke, Toney, Ollie Watkins.
Probably, I feel like a couple of our English boys probably going to leave. Like we can't really sell all of them, so we need to bring some in.
But that being said, push me off the nearest mountain if we buy this guy.
That's so harsh. I'm not against Ollie Watkins. Is he my first choice? Was I necessarily
be against something for once?
I am against stuff, but I just think a lot of our strikers are decent, Jess, or striker options are decent. I'm not against Ollie Watkins necessarily.
Imagine. Imagine.
I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be all right at Arsenal. I think he would cook with better players. Is he the most sexiest and glamorous signing? No. The only thing I disagree with you is, as much as I actually agree with the fact that you want a striker that stands in the box, I want that as well. I just think when you look at Mikel Arteta, he don't want that. You're gonna have to be able to do that and be a bit more hungrier. But all of our strikers, it's all about the other aspects of the game, as we're seeing with even someone like Kai Havertz. So I don't think it's realistic. My top target would be Osimhen. I would like Sesko. I wouldn't be against Vlahovic just because Arteta scouted him before, but Arteta wanted Mudryk. It ain't worked out at Chelsea. I just think Ollie Watkins is going to cost a lot of money, and I'm a bit snooty. He is English, respectfully, so I'd probably stay away. But for all the striker names we've been linked with, I don't think he's the worst, and he's quick, and he works the wide areas as well. So I'm not against it. I'd rather him over Toney, I must admit.
Basically, the super version of Pokemon, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna go nerdy real quick. So you know how they have the original one and then they evolve to the bigger one.
Charizard,
so he's like the most evolved version of Eddie Nketiah. Like if
that's
Nketiah
harsh.
Like he's the end. No, because the original one is Eddie, and then there's a middle one, and then
but Ollie Watkins can actually, his link up play is actually good. Eddie's is on the floor.
But that's what I'm saying. He's an evolved level of Eddie. He's the
but even the fact that
he's
next to Nketiah, that's harsh, man.
He is the most evolved version. Like he does a lot of the same things. He likes to run the channels. He's a poacher. All those types of things.
When you've seen Eddie Nketiah run the channels,
that's all he can do.
When have you seen Eddie Nketiah run the channels?
I have seen Eddie run the channels. Huh?
Consistently.
Yeah, this
when
season.
did you see that?
Yeah.
I ain't seen that. That must be a next Nketiah. I don't know about that.
The only reason why he doesn't run the channels as much is because our players are afraid to release the ball into the channels. They just are. If Eddie's only strengths are like poaching and then like kicking the ball and then him running after it.
To
That's
be
it.
fair, he's got a hat trick on like Jesus, so that kind of tells us we
Oh
need to
my
sign a striker.
goodness. Okay.
We need
All
a
right.
full.
But so Ollie Watkins, out of the English strikers that we've been linked to, is the best one. So there's that. If he could be a backup striker for us, that would be ideal. But him being the guy and then the next guy below him being Jesus, drop me out.
I mean, I
I
hear that.
unsubscribe from Arsenal. Like, be
That's hard.
serious. Go get somebody 6'4", pacey, like
Ain't that him?
physical striker.
Ain't that
None.
him?
And a bagsman, somebody that's actually going to score goals and be in the box and is going to.
You
What
just described
really
him.
irritates me about Ivan Toney is he's not like that good of a striker of the ball. It's like when have you ever seen him like really strike the ball for real?
Yeah,
Or
man,
is it
come on.
like,
Out of this guy, can hit a free kick, take a penalty, score some very cute finishes. That's harsh, Jess. That's
no,
very harsh.
I don't think he's who you guys think he is.
I don't think Ivan Toney's the messiah. I think people overhype him. I don't think he's the guy to alleviate all our issues. I do think it would be shades a bit of Lacazette and kind of like Jesus.
He's a lot
I'm not
like a
against him.
tall Lacazette.
I'm not, but then you can say Gabriel Jesus. I got a lot of hate for saying that in the summer. I was like, I like Jesus, but it's a Lacazette thing. Work rate, skill key.
I said that too. I said Gabriel Jesus is giving Lacazette. The longer he stays here, the more I'm seeing shades of
He's just a bit
somebody
quicker,
that used
a
to
bit
be a number
softer.
9 who has accepted that they don't score goals. And once as a number 9, you accept that you don't score goals.
Yeah,
you're
we're in
finished.
dangerous
You're
territory.
done. Yeah, exactly. Do you see that down there? It says Tony is worth 35 million euros. Do you see this? This man, it could never be me.
To be fair, he's going to have 12 months left on his deal. The only reason I think Tony signs for Arsenal is because he lives in London. He's Premier League proven. He twerks for anyone in any interviews he does. He's got one foot out the door. I've always said it, where you look at Cody Gakpo to United versus where he's actually at, and Mudryk to Arsenal versus where he's at. Half the time when you're linked to these guys, they go somewhere else. So I think we are moving away from Ivan Toney. For every journalist that says that we're going for Ivan Toney, there's an in ITK that says we're not. So I don't know. I just know whether it's Tony, Watkins, Osman, Sesko, Ferguson, and the names me and you will speak about on streams and individually on streams, just make sure you sign a striker in it. Just make sure I'm not having the same conversations in August / well, better yet, September, because the market closes. Midfield addressed, striker addressed, depth addressed. If we're having these same conversations, but it shouldn't be. Do the competent thing. Obviously, if you're going for household names, it can get a bit tricky. But if I'm still talking about the same areas in that period, then as we said, how much time is going to watch the same movie and be surprised about the ending?
I guarantee you, we will be talking about something that we did not get.
We will,
Arsenal
because
don't
this
like
football
doing
club does
the
that.
easy way.
What did you just say there? We don't do it the easy way. So 100% we will, man, which is sad, man. But I got nothing else to ask you, Jess, man. Let people know where they can find you. Can't imagine they don't. But yeah, and any content to come out before I let you get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so YouTube. She knows Arsenal. Type it in.
She doesn't rate Smith Rowe, though, so does she really know Arsenal? But fair enough. Do your thing, man. Opinions and that subjective. Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah.
She rates Kirill.
I've been so right this season. It's been insane. I've been on the right side of history for so many things. Like, I'm actually sitting pretty. Like, I really am.
I think next stream I'm gonna start screenshotting these tweets, man. You need to pay for your sins, man. I see everything.
The only thing I'm waiting to come good on is Fabio Vieira. Once I come good on that, baby.
You need to go cook him some food or get him some protein shakes, man. I love the guy, but until he can assert himself in this league, forget about all of that. Like, forget about that. And even Vieira, where's he gonna play? Unless you take Kai Havertz's place, you're not playing. You're not gonna play out wide ahead of Saka.
You want an actual midfielder? Let's get.
I like Vieira
at left 8.
I like him, but you didn't get. I do like Fabio Vieira. I've been rating Fabio Vieira. He's just not strong enough. Gets injured whenever he gets a bit of form. And the 10 and the 8. You didn't play ahead of Xhaka for obvious reasons. You're not playing ahead of Odegaard. I wouldn't mind actually playing Odegaard in the 8 and Fabio in the 10. I've actually said in August, Fabio Vieira was probably our player of the month, but so was Eddie Nketiah. So maybe birds of a feather flock together. I don't know, people. It seems like she rates the shit ones and hates on the lit ones. But it's all right, Jess, man. She knows Arsenal. But away from the matter, let me let you get out of here, man. Again, people, I keep saying this. Make sure you subscribe to Jess. And we just literally, when this comes out, you would have probably already seen the video on her channel. So make sure you go subscribe, show that some love. And hopefully the next time we do this or anything in connection to Arsenal, it's not about losing. You know, maybe there'll be a day where we sign a striker, winger, we win a league and all of that jazz. But for now, people, peace. We're out. We're out. We're out. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.